authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. What is Next is a program that is asking questions about contemporary challenges confronting us as a people. But in the process, we look for people that we consider to be men and women with accumulated wisdom and bring them closer and just allow them to help us find relevant answers to such contemporary challenges. And I'm happy you've tuned to this program. Stay with us, it will do you good. There's at the moment a national cry for peace. And peace is not something that we can just wish for. We must work towards it. And so this afternoon, on What is Next, we are asking what are the things that as a nation we must work? What are the efforts, the steps we must take towards the peace that we are all crying and praying for? And just by grace, I have a man of many parts. At the moment, he is the president of the Presbyterian University. He is a former vice chancellor of UCC, University of Cape Coast. But just by grace, he is also the man behind GBC, the board chairman of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. Again, he is a minister of the gospel, a very good Presbyterian. And at the moment, the Presbyterian Church of Ghana has identified some few men and women and tasked them to function as peace ambassadors. And again, by grace, he is one of such individuals that God has, through the church, picked to go around and lift up the voice of peace for this dear nation. I'm talking about Reverend Professor Emmanuel Adow Obeng. Prof, welcome to What is Next.
Thank you so much.
We are so grateful you've made the time.
Thank you. and I appreciate your perseverance.
Thank you.
To get me here.
Prof, some have known you as their vice chancellor, some have known you as their pastor, and on. But help my viewers to know a little bit of you. Who is Reverend Professor Emmanuel Adobe?
Well, let me begin by saying that I was born in Agransaba, a village in the central region. I was born a twin, so I have a twin sister. And I attended Swedbury Secondary School, did my O-levels there, did my A-levels at Winneba Secondary School, did my first degree at the University of Cape Coast, proceeded to University of Aberdeen, UK to do my master's and my PhD. Working experience, I've worked in the university throughout my whole life. In fact, I've spent 9 years working within the university. And that is the job I know best. If you take me out of the university, then the next place will be the ministry. These are the two main areas I've worked. And I've served as you said, the first alumnus vice chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. And I'm married. I've been married for 42 years now and still counting. I have 2 adult sons whom I adore so much, and have grandchildren who are so adorable. I think this will do
for now.
Now,
Prof, for the sake of our young people who are watching us, sometimes it's like, from Agransaba, you became Professor Adow Obeng. What are some of the growing up values that have kept you up to date, values that you will never want to let go?
First is humility. In fact, I picked this up from my parents. My parents were my first mentors. I picked this up from them. And 2, perseverance. And then believe in myself. Because I realized that no matter how difficult the situation is, faith in God and faith in himself, I should be able to drive through it. Hard work. Because really, coming from a rural area, it was very difficult trying to move up the academic ladder. I can recount a number of instances where even going to school, nearly became a problem. I remember when I was in Swedish secondary school, I had to almost drop out of school because of school fees, even though I had Ghana government scholarship, because my parents couldn't pay the difference in terms of the scholarship and the school fees. But God always comes through. I was able, one of the teachers in Swedish secondary school saw me, looked at my progress, and he decided to pick up the balance. One Mr. Shagbama, he wasn't even a Ghanaian, from Burkina Faso. So perseverance and faith in God and faith in self, humility has kept me going all this while. And in fact, in terms of even when I became the VC, perseverance still came, in to keep me, driving me to achieve some of the goals that we had set ourselves. So these are some of the values that have kept me going, and then tolerance. I'm somebody who can listen to all kinds of arguments, no matter how angry you sound. I will listen to the arguments and be in a position to pick out those threads that are good enough to be used. Because if things work out, it will work out for all of us, in the interest of all of us. So these are some of the values that I cherish so much.
Prof, you mentioned a man from Burkina Faso on this platform. What is next? Are there one or two people, whether they are alive or gone to glory, that on our program you want to say thank you?
Oh, there are two people that I would want to, apart from my parents who are dead and gone, but there are two people I really wanted to express my gratitude to. The first one is Professor Jofusano Mensah. I always call him my big brother. And he has actually been a big brother to me. Anytime there are difficulty, you share with him, and he will come out with some ways of really getting you through this. I've always looked up to him, even when I was Vice Chancellor. He was then the Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. Then the second person whom I've been so grateful to is very Reverend Professor S.K. Japon. He was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast when I was then the Pro-Vice Chancellor. And if I am good at university management, I think I owe it to him and the kind of mentoring he took me through. Because when I became Pro-Vice Chancellor under his tutelage, he allowed me to understand the workings of the university management, things to look out for, things to be careful about. So right now, there are certain things I don't take for granted, because it's not everybody who comes smiling to you that means well. So you need to be, very sharp, examine whatever comes before you make a decision. He also taught me how to be tolerant. He used to say, he has a very good expression which I also picked. He also calls me Yao, let's hit the ground running. And that meant that whatever he was telling you, you must go and do it immediately. So I picked that trait from him as well. So I don't allow things to keep too long on my table. Whatever needs to be done today must be completed today, because tomorrow would come with its own challenges. And I don't want to leave today's challenges pushing me into the future. Everything must be done and done on time. So these are the two people that really, sitting here and thinking of the calf, I can mention their names, that they have really, really impacted my life in so many ways.
Viewers, this is what is next. And I'm in conversation with Reverend Professor Emmanuel Adow, Obeng, a former Vice Chancellor, University of Cape Coast. He's at the moment the President of the Presbyterian University. He is the Board Chairman of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. But his church has tasked him at the moment as a peace ambassador, together with others, working towards the peace that we are all crying and praying for. And so, Prof, at the moment there's a national cry for peace. And I'm asking myself, How do we explain this national cry?
Well, the cry is, in my view, coming out of some kind of fear that we have. A fear we have that the kind of elections we're going into, if the elections are not credible, things could get out of hand. In fact, every 4 years we go through this cycle. This fear that we might lose control. This fear that we might not be able to defend whatever each one of us have gone to vote for. And I think the fear is coming from through the fact that we think, for some reason, I don't know whether this is true or not, but we think our electoral commission is not capable of organizing free and fair elections. If we remove this fear and have faith in the EC for organizing, being capable of organizing free, fair elections, I think that would be the first step. So we must have an independent, a really independent EC, that irrespective of whichever government is in power, will have the confidence that the integrity of EC will override whatever interest that might come. 2 is the kind of pronouncements that we also make. All of us, not just the political aspirants, but all of us. Because when you hear people who are very important in the country, people who hold positions in the party, making certain comments, it gets you worried. Because if you're not careful, you would be you believe some of the things that you are being told. But we must be honest also that in our country too, there's a lot of poverty, and we take advantage of this, and therefore push people to take certain decisions, to take certain actions which really are uncalled for. So the fear is coming up from the fact that, are we capable of holding free and fair elections? And my simple answer is yes, the country, we're capable. Yes, you see, if it's given the freedom to be independent, it has it anyway. The constitutional instruments allow it to really, hold free and fair elections. But we must have faith in the EC. If we don't have faith in the EC, then all the time this agitation will be there. And our people should also find a way to watch what they say on air, to watch what they say to our rank and file, to watch what they say to the people who vote for them. I think if we all watch what we say and we do what we have to do, and we're all guided by integrity of the processes that we follow, gradually this fear will be removed. That's what I think.
Yeah. And Prof, at the moment the security agencies, they have identified some communities that they describe. Sometimes you hear hotspots, flashpoint. Now, is it possible, and how do we do it? How do we have free, fair, credible election in communities that the security agencies have described as flashpoints?
Identifying them as flashpoints, in my view, is even a step in the right direction. But what do we do with that information? You know that this area is a hotspot, a flashpoint, which means that there's a tendency for some violence to erupt. So what do? We don't wait until it's 2 weeks, 1 week to the elections before we take any action. No. First of all, let's ask ourselves, what makes those areas flashpoints? I'm sure we may have reasons why those areas are flashpoints. And then we need to think of some kind of interventions that we can put in place to diffuse the situation in those areas long before elections. Sometimes when you go into some areas, you find a lot of the youth will be idle. How do we engage them? You find that there are opinion leaders in those areas that we can use to try and, get the youth to really speak about what exactly is making them behave the way they do. We need to identify these reasons and then make every effort to ensure that we can diffuse these areas even before the election time. You see, in my view, when you identify a place as a flashpoint, and then on the day of election, you send security people armed to the teeth to go there, you rather may escalate the problem than solving the problem. So during the time when, let's say, elections, we are going to go to elections, vote on the 7th December. God willing, in January, end of January, things will have settled with the government and whatever, everybody beginning to function. This is when we need to begin to work on those areas. Find out what is going on. So within 3 years span, whatever is making those areas hotspots or flashpoints, we can deal with that. Training programs, we need to organize training programs in those areas to address the issue. If it's a situation of jobs, how can we create jobs in those areas so that the youth will feel that they are also being cared for? We don't wait until day of elections and send security people in there to terrorize people. It doesn't help the situation. Let's identify the reasons and let's deal with those reasons long before elections.
Prof, I'll come back to the issue if you raise that we should not stop the peace process, the national cry, immediately after election. But after election, whatever will make an area a hotspot must be addressed. But our elections are governed by laws. The December 2020 election is governed by the CI 127. All the political parties and the other actors know.
Yes.
But why will somebody, especially the political actors, not go to court knowing that they have the constitutional instrument, but they rather mobilize the young people you mentioned on our streets and arm them? And you earlier on mentioned that these are supposed to be responsible people who should watch their utterances. Why will such people, instead of going to the law courts, rather mobilize people on the street?
I think we have to take a step back into our own history and look at the period of the revolution. For me, this is where we lost something. You see, we have adopted an attitude in this country whereby people no longer have patience to see things through. There used to be a time when we respected authority. There used to be a time when we respected the aged. There used to be a time when we respected education. But a time came when all these were thrown out of the window. I'm talking about the revolutionary period. Yes, probably there was a reason for that. Probably. But the fact still remains is that we lost control of how to manage situations in this country. And you remember there was days when this workers' defense committees and so on and so forth. Who were the chairpersons of the workers' defense committees and so on? There were those people within the institutions who were not working. Those within the institutions who were rather, who were not giving of their best. They became the chair people. And they were now dictating the pace, how things should go. So, at the moment, people think that if you want to get rapid results, go to the streets. That is the situation which we are now. Now, look at even the trend now, where when people want things to be addressed in our institutions, what do? They take to the streets, as if the answers are out there. That's the first thing, attitude now. I think we need to change that attitude. We need to take a step back as a nation and said, no, we can no longer do this. You go and arrest or go and invite somebody for interrogation, or for, let's say, the police send an invitation to you. You, the Presbyterian Church, will not hit the street. But if you're a political figure, of course, we'll hit the streets. Because we cannot allow anybody, so as it were, take our person for granted. This happens all the time. But nobody raises an eyebrow. We take it as part of our culture now. But it is wrong. Two, I think most of these issues that we take to court involving, elections and so on, sometimes the court takes a long time for decisions to be made. I remember there was a case where, I think somebody contested the results of a particular constituency. And by the time the court took a decision, the person had almost served the first term. So would I have the patience to wait if the court is going to take so long a time to make a decision, to judge? So we need to find a way to ensure that some of these cases are dealt with dispatch, so that people will have the confidence in the system that if I go through the proper, channels for my case to be heard within the short possible time, I'll have an answer. Look at the last popular one that came on 2012. Almost 8 months. The country was at standstill. All of us were glued to our televisions, radios every day for 8 good months. How long can we go through that process? So I think we need to look at our own systems and begin to tighten those areas that have weaknesses, so that we begin to have confidence in our electoral processes. Once we have confidence in the processes, I think some of these things will begin to die down.
Prof, you seem to be worried about those who are mobilizing people on the street.
Oh, I am.
Will you look straight to this camera and at least plead? You are a peace ambassador. At least no matter what, even including the delays in our law court, yes, at least mobilizing people to the street, I think should not be the option for us.
It should not be the option. It should not be the option.
So we may not know who is watching us,
because it doesn't solve any problem. It doesn't solve any problem. It rather aggravates the situation. Because when you go out there and you are met with force, what happens? Somebody will lose a life. Somebody will be maimed. And you become now, a challenge to your family. So I think we need to stand for peace in these coming elections.
We need to stand for peace, and all of us, for this dear nation called Ghana.
Yes.
This is what is next. I'm in conversation with Reverend Professor Adow Obeng, and he is saying that we must choose peace. We must say yes for peace. Even if we think our law courts will give us or may not give us what we want, still we must choose peace and say yes to peace. Now, Prof, we have a very vibrant media in Ghana at the moment, and the media has done very well in giving platform for education and information. Unfortunately also, media platforms have become a platform for name calling, insults. In fact, even this morning, some people have fought, somewhere in this country. And how do we also, especially the media, also handle the excesses? Because you talk about some of the language that some supposed to be responsible people, and it's not changing. Even today we have witnessed some of such part of this country.
I think that the media has a major role to play. There's nobody's in doubt about that. We get our information from the media. I mean, the media is such that we are now in a global village. So the media has a major role to play. But I think the media also needs to be very, should play by its ethics. It should play by its ethics. For me, if I were to be managing a media platform and I invite somebody to come, he comes. and through the discussion we're having, he begins to now throw tantrums, begin to insult people, you can be sure that will be the last time the person will appear on that platform. We need to begin to blacklist people who are used to name calling, who are used to insulting people. You see, the most unfortunate thing is that our young ones listen to this and they begin to pick it up. They see it as a norm because nobody is calling them to question. I think the media can help us. Media should check on the kind of information they also get. You see, we have so many media houses now, so many radio stations and so on. And every media station wants to, as it were, prove that, oh, they got information first. So we are always in a rush to let out information without cross-checking whether the information we are getting is really factual. And that's why I'm saying that they should play by their ethics. If they do well, that we should be able to handle some of these situations. 2, we should begin to, let me use the word blacklist, because that's the only word that keeps popping into my head. Because if you invite somebody to come and then it turns out that way, you don't invite the person again. And after a couple of stations have done that, he would think twice, because then he is not going to get any platform that he's going to use to insult others, use all kinds of violent language to incite others. So the media has a major role to play in this. And I think that the National Media Commission should also begin to really look at some of these issues that we are talking about. Because it is a commission that has been set up to really moderate, some of these things that we do. They should be able to call a media house into question if people keep on using your platform to insult others. If people keep on using your platform to incite violence, we must begin to ask questions. Because if we want peace in this country, then we should not allow those things to fester. We must find a way to clamp down on those areas where people are using it as a kind of a platform to keep on creating some kind of chaos in the country. We want peace in the country.
We want peace in the country. And Prof, there's also this, misinformation and disinformation, especially with the social media. Sometimes, in fact, it happened during the registration. I received a video that people, police, military, BT, I later on got to know that one of the videos even did not come from this country. One was 2016 video, but it was all over the place. Sometimes when they start counting ballots, you hear, or even when we are voting, they have killed somebody, they have killed our people, 6 people. You go there and later on you realize that nothing happened, but then it had been all over. So as you are addressing the media ethics and even calling in the National Media Commission, how do we also handle the phenomenon, misinformation and disinformation, and how even social media is facilitating it at the moment?
Yes, Kwabena, that's why I've said that. You see, the media itself should cross-check its facts. If you are bringing me something to air, if I'm going to be held responsible for what I'm airing, I must first of all cross-check that whatever I'm airing is factual. You see, these videos that have been circulating, nobody holds anybody to nobody holds anybody to account. And some of us have the habit of whatever we get, we forward. Whatever we get, we forward. We don't even think about the damage that it might cause. We don't even think about the fact that whether this is true or not. We don't cross-check anything. Especially on some of these church WhatsApp platforms. You read all kinds of things which have no bearing on whatsoever. But people are happy, So first, the media should cross-check their facts. 2, I think the media personnel themselves also must remain apolitical. I mean, they themselves are partisan, and they also are to it. he ought to it. As chair of GBC, sometimes I get calls. I get calls. Prof, are you watching your TV? Are you watching your station? Because people think that things are tilted in favor of one party. But GBC doesn't stand for that. It is very neutral. But sometimes when you go into it, you find that there's some media personnel who for some reason, I don't know, may be tempted to do such that. So please, let us cross-check our information before we put it out there. Even if you report it second or third, so long as it's factual, it's better than rushing out there with information which may turn out to be false. Because I personally, if I read or I listen to news, a particular channel, once or twice, and I found that the information I'm getting is not based on facts, I won't go there again. So if you want people to get credible information, to have faith in what you are putting out there, then you must cross-check your facts and train your personnel to do the same.
Prof, you mentioned how people spread information on social media. You mentioned the church, and again, humbly, I want you to look straight to this camera and this time talk to ordinary Ghanaians, because I witnessed that during the registration how people were, alarms, and later on realized that they did not exist, that we are very close to December 7th, and how we must handle some of the things you have mentioned earlier on. We don't know who is watching, but please talk to somebody for us.
Citizens of Ghana, I think we need to watch this very carefully. That getting closer to election day, we'll be getting all kinds of messages. Some of these messages are concocted by people just to whip up sentiments. I pray that we should desist. If you know the information you have received would cause somebody harm, would cause somebody heartache, don't forward it. Especially if you have not been able to cross-check the information to find out whether the information is true or false. Let me use Donald Trump's expression, fake news. Let's avoid spreading fake news.
Let's avoid spreading fake news. This is what is next, and I'm in conversation with Reverend Professor Emmanuel Adow Obeng, a former Vice Chancellor, University of Cape Coast, the moment the President of Presbyterian University, a very good university. Parents who are looking for places, good environment for your wards. Presby University is one of the best. In fact, it has been considered one of the best in this country, and he is the president of the university, and he is the board chair of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. But above all, as a minister of the gospel, his church has identified him as a peace ambassador, and he is helping us to find out our route towards peace. Prof, we are very religious people, and you said that even when it comes to this spreading of such information, church people may not be exempted from what you have just mentioned. Where is the place of faith and faith values as we try to respond to the national cry for peace?
You made a statement which I sometimes I question myself, that we are religious people. Indeed we are. This country we are. But sometimes the values that we exhibit are not religious values. In other words, even though we are Christians, I mean, we claim that we are about 70%. Is it 70% Christians? I don't even remember anymore. But we don't exhibit Christian values in whatever we do in this country. Very few do that. So, in fact, if we are exhibiting Christian values, and if we are 70% Christians, then every 4 years we don't have to worry about elections. It will be a matter of course, because we know deep down that the Christian values teach us to avoid violence, to avoid, cheating, to avoid, being bought by people giving us money and so on. All these are there.
And they are also in Islam.
They are also in Islam.
Our friends in Islam also
Exactly.
are not different from the values you just mentioned.
So why is it that we are always, every 4 years, we become scared? It's because we have not allowed, we are not living the Christian values. You let me give an example. There are a number of our religious groups which are very political. So when a member of our party doing something wrong, we are not able to speak out boldly and condemn it. We look home. But in the long run, when it backfires, it's affecting the entire country. So I think we need to begin to live as Christians. Let Christianity shine, or let our religious values shine in whatever we do. I know very good Muslims, and they would never involve themselves in violence, because they will tell you that Islam itself is peace. And if this is so with Christians as well, and if it is so with traditional believers as well, because every traditional believer believes in Asumdwe, peace, health, peace. So if the country is that religious, then we must begin to see these religious values, religious tenets being displayed in our daily lives, in our relationship with one another, in the way we do our work. If we are able to do that, I bet you this country will develop in leaps and bounds.
But Prof, normally when we are talking about peace, it is before, during, and after.
Yes.
But it's like we spend our efforts before during. You don't see much effort in after the election, the transitional arrangement. Now, what will be your advice? What do we do, especially the transitional moment? That's where you hear they have stolen all the cars, and people are, chasing people from even KVIP and others, and that is something that we don't pay much attention, but it's equally hurting.
I think we should in the sense that it will help us move away from this 4-year cycle of always talking about peace. Immediately the president is sworn in, everybody begins to relax, and then we begin to talk about the size of government. We begin to talk about who's going to get what. You see, the problem with us in this country is the winner takes all syndrome. Once I win, all the power is within me. All the power is with me. I appoint whom I want. But you see, if we can begin to move away from winner takes all, it will help. 2, after elections, we leave whatever peace issue to the Peace Council. That shouldn't be the case. It should be each one and everybody's concern that the peace that we have been able to gain, taking us before, during, should also prevail after the elections. But many of us, church leaders, we just go back into our corners. It's only when it's 2-3 months to the time of election that we now come out and start preaching peace. Every time we mount the pulpit, every time we get an opportunity to speak to people, we must drum home the issue of peace, even after the elections. Because, see, these things don't start overnight. If you have been following the politics in this country, the agitations have started quite some time. We are accusing one another of corruption. We are accusing one another of all kinds, but we are not taking action to address those issues. If somebody is corrupt, the law courts are there. So whilst continuously calling the person corrupt and not taking the person before the law courts, aggravates the situation. Because you see, we must also remember that in this country we are all intermarried. For example, I can go to a place, I may be discussing you. I'm sure if it's within a presidential setup, there are a number of people who would know you. So I am not only causing an affront to you, but to a lot of people who know you very well. So when we're beginning to criticize people, we must criticize with facts. If the person is indeed guilty, let's take the person to the law court and prosecute. Or we stop this name calling, because it's been going on in our history for quite a long time. So the peace should not be only before enduring, but it should also be after. And there's a challenge that we have to throw to all of us, the churches, to NCCE, to whatever, to the media. We all have a role to play in this building this peace process. I'm just praying that come next 4 years, we'll not be talking about peace anymore, but we'll be talking about how far the country has been able to come and how we've been able to now organize our elections, that when it's time for election, just becomes a matter of course. I just walk to the polling station, cast my vote, and go to work. I pray for that time in this country.
And that would be my prayer too. Prof, there's a direct correlation between sustainable peace and sustainable development. So it's not peace, in itself, but peace that will guarantee us sustainable development. But you're a peace ambassador, and you are saying that next 4 years, you pray and hope that if they will assign you any rules, maybe how do we make sure Ghanaian voter is more discerning?
Exactly.
But what would be your advice? At the moment, Presbyterian Church of Ghana has announced peace everywhere. Catholic Church is doing the same thing. Our Presby moderator himself is leading the campaign. If you go to Church of Pentecost, the chairman, Apostle Nyamicha, and his team, he direct Catholic Church, Methodist Church. How will be your advice to all these bodies that are tax people that 4 years, let's move from this to that? But how do we do it?
We have to continue preaching this peace after the elections. That's one. Two, we need to also begin to educate ourselves, everybody, that there is a direct relation between sustainable peace and sustainable development. The examples are all around us. Countries that do not have peace have not been able to develop. Is that the way we want to go? So I think we need to drum home this message continuously, that without peace, nothing can go on in our country. Without peace, there will be no good education system. Without peace, there will be no good judicial system. Without peace, there will be no good parliamentary system. Peace affects everything that we do. Even to sleep at night and wake up in the morning is a matter of peace. So the peace that we are talking about should not only be during the time of election, but even these days, even traveling at night is becoming worrying. It's becoming worrying, because you don't know what you might meet on the way. Somebody may lay an ambush. That also is affecting our peace. So the peace is not only going to vote because somebody may cause mayhem, but also to ensure that I can move. There used to be a time in this country when you can drive 12 midnight, wherever, you will get to where you are going peacefully. But now it isn't so. What is happening? So, in the next 4 years, we should be talking about how we can really maintain peace in this country on all fronts, not just during elections, but on all fronts, so that when my grandchild is old enough, he will know that, yes, this country has really developed.
Prof, you are former Vice Chancellor, Cape Coast, and still Vice Chancellor. You've been into public university and private university. Has the issue of consensus building, democratic culture, sustainable peace, a critical issue in the curriculum we are running, the next generation of ideas that we are producing? Are you sure the next 4 years, the students who come from our university will come from this mindset that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I don't let me go into history, but just to say that it is something that the universities are now doing. For example, we've been teaching critical thinking as a course, but critical thinking should not be taught as a course. It must be embedded in everything that we teach, so that our children, the youth, will begin to be discerning. Now, when they see a challenge, they'll be able to identify it, describe it, and find a solution to it. We are also introducing courses on emotional intelligence. You see, our problem is we find it difficult on how to manage our emotions. We must be taught how to manage our emotions. There are people you meet, no matter how angry they are, they keep their emotions under control. They will look at the issue you are raising and address the issue. At Presbyterian University, for example, we've introduced courses on emotional intelligence. We think through that, we'll be able to help the youth, the young people there, to manage their emotions. It is not every time when somebody does something to you that you need to, meet the person with violence. No. Sometimes just words alone. For me, I believe that there's nothing that we cannot resolve through dialogue. And once we know that, and we can inculcate this into our students, to be good. And now, what Presbyterian University is we also doing is inculcating faith into learning. Whatever we teach as a university, we want you to see the moral aspect of it. If you want to be a good banker, you cannot be a good banker when you don't have integrity, when you don't have discipline. If you want to be a good doctor, you cannot be a good doctor when, once again, you don't have integrity, you don't have discipline. So once we begin to inculcate these in our students, they will grow up to be beautiful young men and women into whose hands we can entrust this country.
Prof, are you optimistic that come December 7th, we will have free, fair, credible, and peaceful election?
Well, I'm very optimistic.
Your last word to my viewers.
For two reasons.
Go ahead.
Because I personally am going to stand for peace. And I know that you also stand for peace. Each one here will stand for peace. If all of us do stand for peace and respect the electoral processes, we shall have credible election. Please, this country is supreme. This country towers over everybody, every political party. Ghana matters, and our life matter. Let's all go and vote. This is just a matter of expression and opinion. May the best people win.
May the best people win. And viewers, this is what is next. How I wish would have had time to continue this conversation, but at least Prof has raised certain important issues for us that as we get ourselves ready to December 7th, we must not only cry for peace, but we must work towards it. This is what is next. We will come your way same time next week, God willing. Till then, may God bless our homeland Ghana and make this dear nation great and strong. My name is Kwabena Opuni-Frimpong.